the July 29th Board of Ed meeting, and we start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice
for all. Thank you. Have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second.
Thank you. All comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's time for public comment at the beginning of the meeting. Ken?
There is no one that was called in at this time.
Thank you. We motion to approve the minutes of the Board of Education special session meeting of July 22nd.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments? Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Now have to abstain. I wasn't there.
All right. Good. I still find it amazing that Deb can produce these so fast. But the next board meeting is next Wednesday, August 5th at 6 o'clock. And now, Kath, the strategic plan for reopening recovery.
Sure, Bob. We'll give some updates. I know we've got kind of a small group here, and I do imagine that by next Wednesday, we'll also have much more information regarding the flexibility that the districts have been given. So I think next week we'll have a pretty robust meeting. A couple of things I want to note right away is, first of all, we sent the reopening plan to share with parents on Friday, and the Reopen 20 mailbox has gotten quite a bit of feedback and questions, and we have not been able to go through all of the questions and comments that came our way, but we hope to be able to do that on Friday, and then on Monday put out kind of an FAQ. I do want parents to know how much we value their feedback and their questions. And just to clarify, I know there was just some misconception that based on the questions that I saw, that some people felt that they could choose to be in person, to do the hybrid model, or to do distance learning. And at the time that the plan went out on Friday, the only option that parents had, because we were being told as school districts that we had to open in person. So the only two options were in person or opt out of in person, which meant that students would learn remotely at home. So between Friday and Monday's press conference with the governor, what changed was some flexibility. And the flexibility, based on the call that I just finished, which was the governor's conference call, the flexibility was given due primarily to the fact that some districts said, we cannot meet the health guidelines and the CDC guidelines for health and safety in our school. It's absolutely impossible given the restrictions. So that is why the flexibility was given to follow the hybrid model, so that you would have half as many students in the building. So some schools are considering that for their high schools, both because of the size of the high schools and because of some of the data that we're seeing in terms of the incidence rate and the transmission rate at high schools. And I want you to know that we too are talking about that in our district, about whether it makes sense for us to move to the hybrid model at the high school level. So that's what we're talking about there. And we were, by our professional association, we were basically told three things. To the greatest extent possible, the expectation is to open in person. when you do a remote learning design, they're asking that 50% of the time that students are engaged in remote learning, that it is synchronous, meaning it's a live connection with the teacher, and that the other 50% of the time would be asynchronous. And, for us, that would mean pre-recorded videos for students. So I guess those are kind of the big topics, is the educational design. I also asked Corey to join us tonight. We did send out our weekly Wednesday update as a recorded video that Corey and I recorded. I don't know if the board members got that. Corey and I recorded that this afternoon just to give a little bit of an update there. And again, we'll continue to work on our own plan as we get more updates in terms of the number of staff we have coming back, as well as the number of students. But the directives to us were in person, to the greatest extent possible, 50-50 synchronous and asynchronous, and a strong urging to make decisions regionally, to kind of follow the same plan. And that urging is due to not just teachers, but Board of Ed employees who work in Durham, live in another town, and have children in another town. And I actually asked our HR office to just do a sort for me of all of our employees by address, so that I could see the number of employees we have who actually live in the surrounding areas. And, luckily, because I know so many of them, tried to kind of identify which people have children in other school districts. So I do think it's a worthwhile endeavor for us to continue to look at that. The other big topic for us as superintendents has been a request for a consistent protocol by which we make decisions on a number of things. One, what will the incidence rate be in our town that would allow us to come back in person? What would the incidence rate be to force us to go to a hybrid model, if that's the criteria we were using? And then what would be the incidence or increase that we would see that would call for a full school closure? We are hearing that information is coming our way tomorrow, and also includes the protocol we would follow if we had an identified case in our school. So we were all looking for that kind of consistency. And Corey, do you want to just talk a little bit about if people opted out of in-person learning, what the remote learning would look like, and what our priorities were in creating the design of that? And then maybe just a high level on the hybrid. I have a feeling by next week we'll be talking about that more significantly.
Sure, Kath. So we designed the remote learning to somewhat mirror what students are getting in school, knowing that they could not get exactly what an in-person experience would be for students if they were doing remote learning. So we designed a remote teaching team consisting primarily right now of our literacy and math coaches, our science specialist, and our enrichment teacher. The teachers, the coaches, and the literacy team and math team will be divided into grade levels. And so they will provide the recorded videos for consistency for the students, so the asynchronous piece, and then they will log on with students, the synchronous piece, in small group sessions. And so all of the students who are remotely learning will have ELA, math, science, and social studies. And at the middle school, we're working on the world language piece as well for 7th and 8th grade. So that's how we design that. So for the students that are home, they do get a robust education as well. The only thing that we don't have for the students who are remotely learning is the related arts right now. So we're concentrating on the core academic courses. And then with the hybrid, we had discussed, the potential of the high school, starting with the hybrid model. And as Cass mentioned, the way that we have designed that is students will enter into the buildings in cohorts. So alphabetical cohorts. So say, for example, students ending in the alphabet A through M will be cohort A, and they'll attend school on Mondays and Tuesdays in person, while the cohort B students will be provided with distance learning opportunities. And then on Wednesday, everyone has a distance learning opportunity. And then on Thursday, Friday, it flips. So cohort B is in person and cohort A is distance learning. The distance learning schedule for the high school is modified. So for example, the students who are in person have 8 periods, and they will follow an 8-period day if they go with the hybrid model in person, whereas the distance learning students, it's periods 1 through 4 on the Monday and periods 5 through 8 on the Tuesday. So that's how the high school will work. And if we transition into distance learning, it will be a very natural transition for the students at the high school if we move from hybrid to distance learning. Same approach for elementary. We really would like the students to be in person at the elementary level, but if we needed to move to hybrid for whatever reason, if we needed to move there, then same schedule. Cohort A would go to school on Mondays and Tuesdays in person, whereas there would be distance learning for cohort B on Monday and Tuesday. Following the Wednesday, distance learning for everyone, and then just flipping that where cohort B is in school on Thursday, Friday, and then cohort A is distance learning. And the approach that we would take with the elementary is, again, utilizing our remote team, but in addition to that, also having those connections with the teachers. So providing instruction, from the teachers as well, and some assignments from the teachers. So there's some consistency throughout both cohorts. Anything else, Kath?
No, that's great, Corey, thanks. Bob, I think as I said, by next week, we will have gotten, again, some more guidance, but we are, well underway working on our plans if we do move to a hybrid model beyond the high school. And I think by next week, we'll, be definitively coming to you with a recommendation if we believe that that's the best way to go. At the high school, that will be a recommendation. Again, we are working with our regional teams. We meet tomorrow at 1 o'clock, and then with more direction from the commissioner by next week. So we'll continue that discussion.
I do have a question. If I think I remember reading that there wouldn't be any related arts for about a month or so. Initially, no related arts instruction, is that correct?
That's for the remote learning, Lucy. So for students who are not attending in person, and the remote learning students, not the in-person. In-person students would get related arts as well.
Okay, thank you. That's the question I had.
Sure.
Kath, have they abandoned the health decision to go to hybrid altogether, or just allowing the districts to do that?
We don't know exactly, Bob, what the guidelines will be regarding the flexibility, whether it will be, like if it's just kind of impossible for you to meet the health guidelines. Like, I think there's a couple criteria and you know what, I can't even say a couple because none of us have seen any guidance yet. Just based on the governor's conference call this evening, it sounds like there's kind of a couple criteria. Our original plans were you would move to hybrid once the incidence rate increased. What it sounds like is people are being allowed to move to hybrid because they cannot meet the health and safety guidelines. The other thing I think we all need to be keeping our eyes on is the data regarding, it's beyond high school. People have talked about the 10 to 18-year-olds being a population, that age range of being a concern. So I think that's something that we need to keep our eyes on very carefully and see what kind of direction we're getting from DPH on that, which I think would make us, if we're considering the move to hybrid for the high school, we may find that we're going to be considering that for the middle school as well, if that data is compelling for us for the safety of our staff and
What's your
students.
voice? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right.
And just in case anybody has been texted, the meeting ID was correct. Zoom changed the phone numbers, and Ken has updated the website and YouTube now, just in case any of you have heard from friends that they weren't able to log into the meeting.
When we look at this hybrid model, I think if given a choice, or maybe sometimes the superintendents might consider requesting the opportunity to do that without any conditions, because it seems to make the most sense to me, because you have the opportunity to have the children in school and you have a smaller population going in. So therefore you can utilize all the protocols, the safety protocols and health protocols that have to be adhered to. Plus, by having the same cohorts in for the first 2 days, you've got all day Wednesday to really, because you've got the same kids in there for 2 days, same people. You've got all day Wednesday to do that deep cleaning of the school before you have a different group of students come in. I don't know, to me, that makes the most sense. I think it's the best of both worlds. Just my thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
I see it as being double the work for the teachers personally. And as a parent, then only having your child in school 2 days and having to figure out what to do with them the other 3 days. So I'm just playing devil's advocate here. So I feel like, and then I had posted, it was the only thing that Kath, you didn't comment on the Google Doc, was that unless I'm reading it incorrectly, it looks like the strong students, if they're not participating in band or chorus, then they're really only, I don't have it right in front of me, but I think it's only like 8 to 11:30 that they are learning. Whereas then my 4th grader is going to have to be on the computer from 9 to 2:30. Am I reading that incorrectly, Corey?
You know what, Missy, let us get back to you on that. We were actually in a meeting with the administrators all day and just head down in the work, and I literally left one meeting, read your question, went into that one, and we just never got to it. So we'll reach back out to you tomorrow. I'll actually send it to Scott so that he can comment on it. Honestly, with all models, you can be enhancing one thing while you're diminishing another. Every single one of these, enhance our ability to adhere to health and safety protocols while we're diminishing the amount of time that kids are in school. In reduce the number of students, increase the kind of amount of effort and planning on behalf of teachers. And what Corey and her team have really been working on is how are those distance days as connecting for students, so that there's more, it looks more like our distance learning on the days when students aren't in school in the hybrid model. Even if it isn't with necessarily the classroom teacher. Something we really started exploring was having this kind of like a teacher cohort and a teacher pod that's made up of classroom teachers, potentially related arts teacher, a coach, so that there's kind of a team approach to connecting to classrooms and connecting when we're just connecting virtually. Corey, go ahead. I know I'm.
No, Kath, I think you covered it. And Missy, as Kath mentioned, we didn't have time to really respond to your email. So, again, we'll look at that. We'll look at that tomorrow.
Kath, I know in your video that went out today, you're asking parents to respond by Friday to another survey or the same survey.
Kath, I have a quick question. Since I'm late to the party because I was absent last week, and obviously a lot of work went on. But in reading the document, I noticed that FERPA was not mentioned anywhere. Has there been any change to that? I know that can be a touchy subject, but are we still adhering to all the guidelines of FERPA as we have in the past?
Yes, we are, Norm. We have to. But thanks for mentioning that, and maybe we need to explicitly state that.
Yeah, I've been looking at that document since Friday. I didn't get the update last week, but I was absolutely amazed at it. And I just want to applaud you and your team for putting that all together and getting it out in a timely manner. And it really, I read it and in my mind, you touched all the bases. So I appreciate all the hard work that went into that.
Thank you so much. And parents need more information on the educational design, and we know that, and trying to get that out to parents. We wanted to make sure they saw that, and our school teams and principals have been working, probably for the past 3 weeks, and really identifying clearly, and this is what it looks like in Strong, and this is what it looks like at Brewster, and these are the teachers who will be, addressing this particular area. And really, part of the finalizing of the plan includes the contract negotiations with the teachers union. That's a huge part of this for everyone. And what we want to be sure of, and I really, Missy, I feel like, you in a lot of respects touched on this. We think the most important and most significant thing that can happen or variable in terms of students having a really positive experience is that they have a teacher, whether he or she is working with them remotely or in person, that is focused on them, that is paying attention to the students, that is aware of where they're at socially and emotionally, that is able to work with them, understand who they are as learners again. And to the extent possible, I want to diminish the fragmentation that our teachers have because they're trying to do multiple things at one time. For instance, teach live while recording themselves and teaching remotely. That's something, and I know that's being talked about everywhere. If we come back in person or whatever we do, we need to create a plan that allows teachers to feel safe themselves, to be fully aware of the students who are in their class, to create an instructional design that works within whatever framework they're in, and have the ability to reconnect to their colleagues, to their students, and for their to assist their students in that social recalibration. This is a tricky time, and people are fragile, children are fragile, adults are fragile. We want to set up a framework that supports them to the greatest extent possible. I do think sometimes that there's a misunderstanding of what teachers are truly capable of doing at any one time. So our teachers have that pledge I want the parents to know that we've made that pledge, and some of that will live in the agreement that we have with the teachers union, which we're beginning an informal conversation with the union tomorrow. As members of the planning and response team, I've asked Andrew and Bob to join us for the preliminary conversation. Corey will be a part of that. Gloria Diamond, who's the UNISERV rep at the state, will be a part of that, and both of the union co-presidents, Craig Brattanini and Jessica Lafredo. It's another part of what the design looks like is coming up with that MOA. That makes sense for us.
Thanks, Kath. Again, we'll be on this till we open the doors. Did you have anything to report on the strategic coherence plan?
Yes, well, we've been trying to get to this, since the end of June, and just, I think a little bit of a reminder that we actually had a year last year, and that let me see if I can get rid of all of you. I'm from my screen, not my life. And it's something that we do every year, is at the end of the year, look at the kind of growth we made in terms of achieving the goals that we set. And I just used kind of a basic color system just for a quick look at, the green obviously is the area that we completed. Yellow is in progress. And prior to March, I had been doing a monthly update on our progress towards our strategic coherence plan. And you're able to see all the areas where we met the improvement strategy that we had set. And basically what I did was removed the 3 columns that said, the people who were in charge, the resources that we used, and whatever the other column was, and just so you could quickly see the progress that we've made here. Corey and I were just talking today about how project-based learning is kind of a perfect, on the days that students are out, if we're able to really begin, even though we might be, in distance learning or a hybrid model, to begin to continue our project-based and self-directed learning design. I feel like we made, very good progress. We continue to work on the restorative practices at Strong. With Steve Fitz being in a leadership role at the school, I think we'll see some very nice progress there, because that's an area that he has extensive training in. We continue our equity work, and in the past few months have met as superintendents and assistant superintendents and curriculum directors in terms of our continued efforts against systemic racism and a focus on equity. A big part of our engagement over the course of the past year was looking at our climate survey, getting that feedback back, really looking carefully at what our bullying policies are, looking at the frameworks we're using to address bullying. As an administrative team, we had a full day training session with our legal counsel about areas related to bullying and kind of a deep dive into our bullying policies. We did share the first phase of our Portrait of the Citizen process, and we began our school-based design teams about 20 days before we ended. So we'll need to look at getting that up and running again. Finally, we were hoping to finalize all our transition planning for the district-wide grade configurations, so that continues to be in progress. I guess Orange stands for say no, as we were not able to implement our partnership with pulling Middletown into our partnership. And we still are working on expanding our hiring efforts to create and attract a more diverse faculty and staff population. So we'll work when we catch our breath, and likely when we go back to school, we will work on creating our strategic coherence plan for the coming year.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? No, thank you for the report, though. It's amazing, despite, without being in out of school for 3 months, was still a lot got done this year. The next item is the vote to amend the 2020-21 school calendar. You
Okay,
have
sure. I probably should have kept sharing my screen with you. If we look at the calendar for August, we were slated to start on September 1st. And what I'm asking the board to amend, and actually, with the caveat, it might need to be amended again, but hopefully not. I want parents to be able to begin making plans for the start of the school year, but I would like to move the first day of school from September 1st to September 3rd to allow, we're going to move the staff prep day to a self-selected day in August. The staff prep day will be a time for people to come in and really look at their classrooms. Many teachers have already done that. Many people have come into their offices to really minimize what's in their room, to allow for the greatest social distancing possible in their room. So we'd like people to be able to come back and do that at a day that they select in August, and then we would use the 31st, the 1st, and the 2nd for training and preparation for our teachers. We have some specific training that we must do, kind of health and safety guidelines. Then we have other training that is required each year. And then obviously time for teachers to work and plan together. And then we would bring students back on the 3rd with a shortened day on the 3rd and the 4th. So I guess we would vote to amend the calendar to begin school on September 3rd and add 2 additional professional development days to the start of the school year.
So moved.
Bob? I move we amend the calendar to move the first day of school to September 3rd and include 2 additional days for staff.
a second.
Second.
Thank you. Kathy, we haven't changed the rest of the schedule throughout the year, though, right?
We have not. We have talked about making the Durham Fair Day as a school day, but I've gotten a little feedback from parents, a little sensitive to the importance of that day. So I thought maybe we could just take a breath on that for a minute.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
The next item on the agenda is the review of the CAVE mask policy. Norma, I don't know if you got a chance to go over it or not. You're still on mute.
Yeah, I looked at it this afternoon, Bob. This is actually, as some of us will remember, this was actually part of a conversation that we had at policy the other night. I think Missy brought it up, and it turned out to be quite an important topic. So now that it's in print, I went over it this afternoon. I did not have a lot of conversation about it. I'm not I'm not really interested in wordsmithing. I think there was a will that probably should have been a shall, and that kind of thing, but I'm not going to perseverate over it. So I would like to just bring this forward. I know the policy committee has not had an opportunity to go over this policy as a group, and they can do that during this week. But I'd like to bring it forward on behalf of myself, not necessarily on behalf of the committee, as a first read. I think it's important this policy be put into place because parents are going to want to know exactly what's going to happen. So,
Norm, I haven't seen this. It came out when?
I got it today.
How did you get it?
Email.
From?
Bob, I believe. I thought everybody got it.
It's in Meg's announcement on the board meeting.
Oh, yes. Yes, Meg set it out. Correct.
And I sent it out earlier, about 2 weeks ago.
Yes.
But it was also in the announcement of tonight's meeting. I think it's worth everybody reading. There are some portions of it that relate to distance, and I think there's a few parts of it that are inconsistent with some of our planning. So I would engage all of you to really look closely at it. I think it does define masks and things like that, but it also has some other things in there that I think, Kathy, if you get a chance to look at it, there's some other parts of it I'm sure are inconsistent with what we're doing.
Yeah, I think we need to look it over as an administrative team and kind of cross-reference it with the plan, with our plan that we put together, and just really take a hard look at this. And also, I would like to review it with our health director, just in terms of some of the just some of what's covered in the policy, just to make sure that this is a policy that we can uphold, and that it really does include everything we want, because I do think there's some areas we need to look at as an administrative team.
So Kathy, you're suggesting we do a first read next week?
Yes, I think that would be a good idea.
Okay. And perhaps the policy committee might meet shortly before the Wednesday meeting next week to have a look at what might be considered a second round draft.
Okay.
Yeah. It's probably the most enforceable piece of all the policy, and I think it needs to be carefully done so that the people can understand what the role is and who's adopting it. But there are parts of it that refer to spacing and distance and classroom that are not necessarily needed in the mask policy itself.
Yeah, and Bob, there was reference to, a written notification from a physician is required in order for the board to permit a medical exemption. I had heard from my clinical nurse supervisor from one of her meetings that we were not allowed to ask for a note, which seemed, I don't know, it was hard for me to believe, but I think that's just one of the areas that I want to make sure, if it's in the policy, it's actually something that is, supported and enforceable.
Good. Well, we'll take action on it next week, but please, everybody, please take a careful look at it, because I think it's a significant piece for every person that comes to school. Good. The next item is the committee reports, starting with the policy committee. Norm?
Yes. Policy committee had a meeting last week. I was at that meeting, but I was not at the board meeting. We really did incredible work putting them together and taking a look at them. Most of them, or all of them, were COVID related. And I'm pleased to report that in items A 1 through 3 and 1 through 14 were voted and passed unanimously, with not a lot of cleanup. So if there are questions, if not, since six of the members of the board have already approved them. So I would like to move that the full Board of Education adopt policies under committee reports A, 1, 2, and 3, and then also the following 1 through 14, and adopt them as a group.
Norm,
Yes.
you said not a lot of cleanup. Was there any cleanup?
There were some suggestions that were made, and I have notes on them. And of course, I don't have them with me. They're in Connecticut.
The question is, can we approve policies that we haven't seen the final version of?
Most of these policies are coming intact.
There was Victor, there was discussion of some issues, but there was no change in any language.
That's correct.
Okay.
There were comments and issues and a few other things, but no changes in language.
So no cleanup in language.
No. So Norm, you're
Okay,
making
I'll
a motion?
second Norm's motion.
I did.
All
I
right.
will second Norm's motion.
Any further comments? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. The next is the Playground Committee, Missy.
Where's Bob? I wasn't prepared. Pretty much we're meeting again this Thursday. I guess the type of surface that we were looking at to get for the memorial courts, there's some discrepancies on if people think it is a good surface or not. So he got another quote from someone about asphalt, but it was above our budget. So he was, I don't know, I think gonna try to, they sent something out. To be honest, I haven't looked at it yet. And so we have a couple quotes that we're supposed to look over, and then we're supposed to come to some sort of conclusion on Thursday, I think, of what surface we want. The Lyman Playscape, as far as we know, it has been ordered, and we're hoping it'll be installed by September 1st. And Deb Stone and the couple parents that were working on the memorial playground, they had 3 different options. I guess didn't like any of them the best. So then the guy came back with a 4th option. So they're still working on that, but we're moving forward, and we have a meeting on Thursday at 6:30 in case anyone wants to be there via I don't know what, but.
Thank you very much. Any other comments from Missy? Thank you for all your work. I know that it got complicated with the various prices that came in. The ERC meeting just earlier, we didn't have a quorum, but we did discuss the proposed solar array that's being proposed in Durham on Johnson Lane. And we have by a firm called LOUTH, Luth Callan, CALLON Renewables. And they've approached Durham and the school district to be what's called off-takers of this power. The town and the school district would basically benefit from electrical rate reduction due to the solar power. And they're estimated it would be a 40% reduction in our utility bill for electricity. We have to indicate our support of the project. I think we're about 1.8 million kilowatts of the power that would be produced. So we are a major user. We are called a customer host. They have to get commitments from major power users to go through what's called a virtual net metering application. This is Eversource and United Illuminating and Connecticut Light and Power are the applicants for this virtual net meeting. The firm that's putting together the solar power then puts together an application to them indicating the use of the sources of power, which one would be the town of Durham, the other would be the regional school district, and then it includes 3 of our major schools, high school, Strong and Brewster. And our process, this hasn't been approved by PURA, Public Utility Regulatory Authority yet. And then when this agreement is signed, then they can pursue that with PURA. And our responsibility at this time is to commit that we are interested in participating in this process. So we just need authority for Kim to sign that agreement. If the project goes forward and is completed, then we then have to actually negotiate an agreement with the utilities, and we would have to have an attorney get involved in actually making a commitment to get a contract for purchase of the power.
Bob?
So we're way off. Yes, Victor.
I'm sorry, does this interact at all with our energy cost contract?
No, because it's just Kim has looked at that. It doesn't have an impact on that. It just is a different utility rate. So our savings are still going ahead from the cost saving, from the energy savings process that's separate. We then have another rate from utilities, and Kim has looked at that and
Nice.
that it would be more of basically even greater savings. So we just need an okay for Kath or Kim to sign this tentative agreement, and then we're all set to move to the next step. I don't know when it will be built, but this is the first step, I think, of our involvement to get this to move ahead. So I think we don't need an actual vote. We just need in the concurrence that she should pursue this. I talked to the town, and the town attorney has the same issue. They're just Laura is just signing it that she's committing that she's interested in becoming the partner in this or the customer host in this. But that's all we need. Kath, you had a comment? Kath?
I did not.
Okay.
Well, I'm in favor of expressing interest.
Okay. Everybody else? Me too. Sounds like going to be an interesting deal. It will change the nature of Johnson Lane a little bit, but from corn to solar, so this kind of farming.
Bob, I just want to make sure that, next time we have an ERC meeting, or we just bring it, to make sure we've got a quorum, or just bring it to the full board, the discussion about sub rate. So we can agree on the increase to the sub rate, and another kind of related to that information that's kind of falls under the ERC purview that I'd like to bring to the board is that we have discussed reaching out to our retired teachers who have retired in the last handful of years to see if any of them would be interested in working and supporting our remote work with students. We thought that could be a great supplement. So what we would need to, I just bring that up because at ERC, I try to keep you updated on anything that is an unbudgeted discussion point that has come up in the past week, and that has. So I will, I think what I'll do is just put it on next week's agenda so we can discuss the rates for those two things, and they actually might be the same rate.
That would be great, and we didn't talk about any changes to any female eligibility either, so that would be good if we had any changes.
Can you just tell me who was at the meeting, Bob, since I was on the governor's conference call at the time?
Jamie, myself, and Missy.
Okay. And if you wouldn't mind sending those minutes to Meg. And I know that's probably the review from Kim, but if you could just shoot that over to Meg, then we can post those.
Yeah, the review from Kim is better than what I said. So
Okay,
I'll refer to the document and then we'll send the real written document.
okay.
Great. All right. Next item.
Bob, I think you accidentally muted yourself. There you go.
The communications, I think everybody is using your website now. And wait a minute. All right, now can you hear me?
Mhm.
All right. Communications, we had a letter from my list that Kath responded to about concerns with school. We had John and Elizabeth Waterman had a long letter. We responded, both Kathy and I responded. And Rowan Cummings had a question about the search for superintendent. So those are the main ones I had. I also have communicated with our search consultant. He has sent me a whole series of documents, including an advertisement. I will forward those out later tonight. I just finished looking at them. And we will need to have a meeting of our search committee sometime next week. I'm not sure what day yet. I know it won't be on a Thursday night. He's not available, but we need to have the first meeting of our search committee with the consultant sometime next week. So I will schedule the date. I assume that the evening, not Wednesday, would be good, unless we want to do it after the board meeting, but it'll probably be some evening other than Wednesday. When you look at the documents, there's an advertisement that will go out. Try to see if we can get it out by the weekend. So if you have any comments on it, let me know. But it's just the ad that will go out in the journals. And it looks pretty good. There's some pictures on it. I don't know where they got from, but they're kind of cute kids in it.
Our actual real kids from our district. We just have to make sure that before that goes out, that those are kids who are okay to photograph.
Yes.
And I think some of them are probably in college by now, and they were in first grade when the picture was taken. No, that's not kidding. I think some of them are a couple years old, but we can verify that it's okay to send.
We can supply our better pictures, but
yeah, true.
And so that's it. There's a lot of documents in there. There's a review of both the applications and all of the other evaluations of the fit between what we think we're looking for and what the applicants are providing. So it's pretty thorough documents. And I think that's all I have right now for communications. Kath, you got anything? Anybody else?
Bob, just what I mentioned, that we have several questions from the reopening committee, from the reopening mailbox that I will address. Many of them that were addressed in the plan, but just really happy that we have such an involved parent community, and happy to get back to them. We've just had a busier than expected first 3 days of the week.
All right, any other comments, communications? Thank you. I think time for public comment. Ken.
We only have one caller. They do not currently have their hand raised to speak. Oh, there it goes. Last four digits are 0021. Please state your name and town before your comment.
Hi, my name is Nicole Ercolani, and I'm from Durham. I just first of all wanted to apologize if I sounded frustrated during my comments last week. I'm not used to this format of Zoom, and so like I literally have you guys on my one phone with a Zoom so I can see your faces this week, and that actually helps a little bit to kind of facilitate like having a face to go with the name. So I do want to apologize if I sounded frustrated. I do not think this is an easy job for anyone. I was actually impressed with the plans that you guys released the end of last week. For me, I felt like I needed to respond directly to some comments that were made to me specifically. So I think that's why I probably was a little frustrated. That being said, you know, I have started to speak out for essential parents because that's what I experienced. And, you know, my first comment that I brought up to the superintendent during the informational meeting, the response that I got from her was just kind of vague. And so that's why I really wanted to dive into it a little bit further. I still feel as though the response in the plan is vague, and I understand the wording is put in such a way so that there's like, it's flexible, you know, depending on the situation. But I would like to know specifically for time constraints, that's still a huge issue for me. You know, if there's distance learning or hybrid model, I'm going to have to put my daughter in full-time daycare. And I'm just wondering if there's any recommendations for us parents who do have to have that situation. How can we utilize the time at daycare or with a babysitter to really use that time effectively for education so that we're not having to come home and use the evening hours to educate? You know, I know someone said that it should be quality time, but for me, that just wasn't the experience I had. It was very difficult to come home and have to have my daughter try to sit in front of the computer screen. So if we could have some specific recommendations for that topic. I know, I think the superintendent had mentioned the possibility of having National Honor Society students volunteer at maybe some of the daycares to provide one-on-one tutoring. I don't know if that's still an option, but I would like to see a more detailed plan for that. You know, obviously last week we focused a lot on cost, and I do still think it's a big issue, but I understand that it's not the responsibility of the school board. I just would have liked to see a little empathy and like just acknowledgement that it is an issue for a lot of parents, even if it's not a problem that we can solve. Like to simply say that everybody's struggling, I don't think is a good enough solution. And like, I just would have liked to see that go a little further. You know, I've reached out to state and local representatives, so I'm doing what I can on my end, and I'll be happy to share whatever information I get with, you know, working parents. But, you know, I do think it's a problem for people who are working. I think it's going to be a larger issue for a lot of people as things start to open up. And yeah, I'm sorry. I think that's it. But I just wanted to thank you guys and apologize if I sounded frustrated last week. It's been a very stressful time for essential workers, and I think we just want to have a plan in place. And I understand that it's really up to the state as to like what we're doing, whether we're in the classroom or in distance learning, but to have a more thorough plan for distance learning would be or a more detailed plan would be appreciated on our end. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken, are there any other comments?
No, there are no other callers.
Just to follow up, any of the questions I think that were raised were probably be addressed in the individual school plans and all the remote learning that Corey's putting together. There's a lot of detail that's coming through on all that over the next couple of weeks.
I'll reach out to Nicole again, Bob, directly regarding the specific concerns about in what ways can the school district partner with or support child care centers so that students could be supported in their distance learning. It is absolutely an issue that every district is talking about, and how child care centers can support that if we're out of school.
Right.
Or parents are at work.
With that, we have a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 Good night, everybody. I'll see you next week, and some of you before that. Guys, don't forget graduation's on Friday night.
Good night, all.
Good night. Thank you.